Okay, it took about 5 minutes to launch that level, and then you can see the credentials for the level have been created here, and the starting message is use the compromised credentials, which are given to you to find a secret hidden in the level. Now, for all of these levels in ThunderCTF, we try and simulate the adversary's initial state to be a compromised sort of account that gives them some privileges to the account, but not full-on privileges. And then what we'll do is we'll sort of simulate how the adversary is moving around the compromised project in order to escalate privileges. And so one of the things that we have you do at the beginning of every level is to activate this service account associated with this JSON file. And so that's what we'll do. And actually, you can actually edit this JSON file just to see what it looks like. And so I'm going to edit it. So there's some service account that gets created on your behalf. It's got the private key that allows you to access this service account's privileges. And this is the name of the service account that you have access to. And so this has got minimal privileges on the project, but you're going to use those privileges to escalate. So that's the idea. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate the service account. And this is given to you in the ThunderCTF instructions, where I'll put it up here. We're at the beginning of every level, we want you to activate these service accounts. So that's what I'm going to do for this service account, is activate it. Now, at the beginning of every level, you want to see what kind of privileges the compromised account has given you. And you can do a brute force check on all of the permissions that Google Cloud has available to see if the service account has those privileges. And we've encoded those checks in this script. And so if you go to the script, this test permission script is basically what it is. It basically takes a credential and it tries to test all the different privileges in this credential. So that's what I'll do next. I'll run the test permission script on this JSON file and see what privileges I have access to. And so you see this service account has it can get cloud functions, it can list the cloud functions, it can get the source code for the cloud functions, and then get the location list. So I can do a gcloud. So in order to list functions, I can just do a gcloud functions list, and because I have this permission, I can see all of the cloud functions that this particular service account or that this particular project has. And you can see this is the cloud function that has been deployed in this particular level. Because I have the get permission on this cloud function, I can actually do a gcloud functions describe this particular function name, which is what I'll do next. And then you can see all of the different things about this cloud function are returned. And so let's take a look at this. It has an HTTP trigger. So when I do the describe, it has this environment variable is passed to it. And so it's got this XOR password with a particular number. So keep that in mind because we're going to need that later on in this level, as it turns out. It's got an HTTPS trigger, and it gives you the trigger itself, so you can actually invoke this directly if you would like. The name of the function, so this is the resource name. So every resource in Google Cloud has to have a name, and so this is scoped in this particular project, in this location, and this is the name of that function. It also has, I guess, the upload URL, gives you the code for this. So that's basically the cloud function itself. So let's try invoking this cloud function. So what I'll do is I'll copy this thing, and then I'll do a curl on it. And you can see you get back, hey, this is access forbidden. You don't have the permission to get this URL. And so then you're one of the things that I guess when you deploy this thing and you get a permission to deny, these cloud functions are ACLed, so that if you don't supply a user credential, then you get the 403 error forbidden. And if you look at authenticating a cloud function, which is here, one of the things, if you want to have if you want to protect your cloud function with some kind of access control system, there are many ways of doing this. One way to do this is to basically protect it with force any accesses to this cloud function to require this an identity token, so that it identifies who the caller is. And if the caller has the invocation permission, then allow the invocation. And so on any service account, you can get an identity token, and we have a service account that we have compromised. And so one of the things with the service account is that you can get an identity token for the service account and then attach it using an OAuth bearer token. And that's basically what this this command is doing. So you can actually hit this cloud function endpoint using the identity token of the service account that you compromise. So you can either call this thing manually auth, and then you can see this token. And then what I can do is call this curl command again, and then I can do the authorization bearer. And then, whoops, that's not, I have to actually copy that token. Sorry. And then I can copy this token. And then this will present this bearer token to that cloud function. And if I'm now allowed, if that token has the ability to invoke that cloud function based on presenting a valid identity token, it should be allowed. And it has been allowed. So instead of getting a 503, you get this, hey, must include the password argument in the request. Now, one of the things that this thing allows you to do is, rather than copying and pasting the identity token itself, I could just issue this command where I could do this level of indirection. So let me show you that actually, because it'll be the same thing. So rather than whoops. Rather than copying and pasting the token itself, I can actually just do this as a subshell. So this dollar parentheses says execute this command in a subshell, and then the output of this basically expand out as an argument into this thing, and so, into this command. And so you get the same thing without actually having to copy and paste that entire blob. So you'll see that this thing says, oh, you need to include the password as an argument. And you're like, okay, so well, let me try as a URL parameter to send in the password. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this cloud function, invoke it with my identity token, and then in this cloud function, I will pass it the parameter password, and then I'll say, let's call password is equal to 0. And then it says, oh, password yielded the incorrect result. So it is looking for a password parameter, but I have to actually send it something that it'll actually say, oh, you have the correct password. So this thing is password protected. Okay, so then we're like, okay, we might be stuck here, but if you recall in the initial G-Cloud actually in the initial Python test permissions, we have this source code get. So we can actually get the source code of this particular function. So you can see this. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to look for how it is that we can get the source code from here. And in Google Cloud, you can download the source code of a cloud function. There is this API called generate download URL, which allows, if you have the source code get permissions, and you can look it up in the documentation, you can download download the source code in the URL. And so the actual documentation is given in the code lab or in the hint section. And so this is it. It says you can, if you know of the cloud function that you're trying to get, then you can generate a download URL from it by hitting this REST API, basically, by posting a request. And then some of the parameters that you would have to give it is the function name and basically an authorization. And then what it'll do is it'll pass you back a download URL. So that's basically what we need to do next. Which is what I will, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try this, try and get the source code of this cloud function that I have, and I'll go back here. I can do a, oops. I can go back to the describe and then get the name of the URL. So that was the command I just ran was gcloud functions describe from before, just to get this name of this cloud function that I'm trying to access, which is right here. And I will go and say, okay, that's the name of the cloud function I'm trying to get. And then as parameters, you can't just get this source code. You actually have to show that you have access to it. And one of the things that you can do with this, with getting this source code is you can associate with this an access token. So just like an identity token, an access token allows you to present something that specifies that you have the capability to access this source code. So with the service account that we have compromised, we can print out an access token that identifies the permissions that the service account has, and then see if we can attach it in order to get the download URL. So let me do that and get an access token for this service account. And so I'll do a gcloud auth print access token. And so this is an access token that can be used to identify this service account to the Cloud Function service to allow access to get this source code. That's what I'm going to do in this REST API. I am going to paste this access token in there. The credential I have is an OAuth token that I've already printed, so I don't need to do a reauth of Google. I don't need to do a Google Auth 2.0 of basically my pdx.edu account is basically what it would do for this. I actually already have authenticated and gotten an access token, so that's what I'm going to use here to execute this. And then you can see it gets you a 200, and then it gives you this download URL that basically allows you to download the source code for this particular cloud function. So that's what, so let me bring this up in an editor. So this is the download URL, which I am going to now access. And so you can see if I open this up, there is the Python file. So I'm going to open up this script using just a notepad. And this is the cloud function. Let me make this bigger. Yeah. All right. So you can see that there's this constant. So one of the problems with putting secrets in source code is that if someone gets your source code, they get your secret. And so one of the things is this XOR factor is just hard coded to be this number. And then you can see the cloud function is like if the password is not in the arguments, then you get that error that we saw earlier. And then if there is a password argument, then it basically gets that parameter, turns it into an integer. And then what it does is it gets this XOR password from the environment. So if you recall, when we did the cloud functions described, there was the environment variables of the cloud function. And this is actually good design where you would put the secrets is environment variables rather than in the source code. And so that's basically what's happening here. It's like it's trying to get the secret from the environment, but because we have access to the environment because of a compromised credential, we got the secret as well. So that XOR password we can pull out from before. So if I actually have the describe up, you can see the XOR password is right here, and that's the number. And then if the password XORed with the XOR factor is equal, was not equal to the XOR password, it just says, hey, this is an incorrect result. Otherwise, what happens is you go to this bucket, you get the bucket, you go to exfiltrate the secret, and then you spit out the secret. And so that's basically the level goal. And I should. Oh, I forgot to record the time, but it's like 9 o'clock right now. So I'm going to make sure I kind of know the time so that when I go back into the audit logs, I can tell what I've done. So then you're like, oh, well, in Python, all I have to do, I know what the XOR password is, because I just pulled it out of the environment variable. I know what this XOR factor is. Now I can actually calculate what this field needs to be in order to exfiltrate this value. And so that's what I'm going to do next. So I will start up a Python interpreter here. And then I'll say XOR password is equal to, and then I'll get this number, and then I'll do an XOR factor is equal to, and I'll get this number. And then I will do XOR factor exclusive OR with XOR password. And then you can see this is the number that if you pass in as the password, when you XOR it with the XOR factor, you should get back the XOR password. So then that's the password. So I'm gonna then do this curl, and instead of just password is equal to 0, I can then set the password to be this this integer. And then you get the secret, and this is what you would screenshot. So this exfiltrates the secret, and then you're done with the level. Okay, so that is the level. So let's go back. With a3password, we want you to compromise the level, make a note of the start time and complete the level, and then note the time that you completed it. And so on this particular thing, I have completed it at 9:04. And so what I'm going to do is I need to now go back to examine the log activity in order to figure out, well, if I were to do a postmortem on this compromise as a defender, like what would I look for? Like, let me see how this activity by the adversary shows up when I'm trying to do an incident response on this particular cloud project. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to go to the audit logs here. If I go to the logs explorer, logging logs explorer, I think I'm done with this. Whoops, I did not want to expand it. I want to minimize this thing. All right, this is what I'm going to do. Okay, so these are the log entries that I have here. And if I go back to the code lab, one of the things I want to do is examine the cloud storage logs for access to that secret. So you could think of this being as, hey, the adversary has exfiltrated a list of credit card numbers stored in a storage bucket. And so you know that it was in secret.txt. And so the last log entry shows that, yeah, This is that cloud function that I executed with the correct password. And as part of the execution of this cloud function, you see this invocation ID. That code went out and got the storage bucket that the secret was stored in, and then accessed the actual the secret from that storage bucket. So this is the first part of this, where this secret has been accessed from this cloud function. So yeah, you could actually, so on the left, if you click on any of these, it basically drills into subsets of the audit logs, which is really necessary because you're going to have so much information to filter through. And so if you only want to see the cloud function invocations, you can just click on cloud function, and then you see all the different invocations that have happened. So for example, when we invoked it without the identity token, that was this one. And when we invoked it with an identity token, that was this one. And then we invoked it with the identity token, and then the password is 0. That was another invocation. And then finally, we invoked it with the password of the correct password, and that was the final invocation. And this is us playing the level, and I wanted you to see this. So that's what this part of this the code lab is asking you to do. Examine the cloud storage logs for the source download, and so it's usually prefixed with GCF sources. So I'm going to clear this resource type. And then one of the things you can look for is when you deploy or when you do a source code get, it basically stores the source code of the function into a storage bucket that you then access. And so if you look through the access of this, you should be able to reveal this information. And actually, because I've already populated this with all sorts of other audit logs, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of drill down on, I'm going to basically set a time window for when I'm going to view these logs, and that's what I'll do next. So you can actually drill down and say, hey, I want a custom range of time to look at. And so if I were to say, hey, I only want from 8:50 to 9:04, I can basically reduce the log entries that show up. I can also from here say, I want to look at just storage bucket accesses, and maybe the bucket being the source code entry. You can see I can drill down to actually get the individual call that was invoked when I downloaded the source code from that storage bucket, which is basically here. And you see the zip file that I accessed to open up that source code. And that's basically this part of the code lab where you're doing a storage objects get in order to get this this source code from the service. So that's this next part of the code lab. Okay, and then the last one is examine the cloud function logs for generating this thing. So if I drill down to the cloud function logs, you can see that the generate audit log is here. And so this is just to give you practice of navigating the audit logs to show you how someone's activity on your project shows up in the audit entries on a cloud project. So